On opening day, nothing inspires quite like Formula One. This is the beginning of season 75, the latest chapter in F1's illustrious history. The drivers of 2024 would illuminate any era, and they go racing under the floodlights in just 5 minutes' time. This is the journey to crown the greatest driver and constructor on Earth, and our championship begins here, in front of a sellout crowd at Bahrain International. 5.4 kilometers, 3.3 miles, and 57 laps in the opening Grand Prix of the year ahead. 15 turns available to the drivers, 14 they realistically worry about. That is the circuit, these are the tyres. It's the soft, the medium, and the hard, that bit you know. It's the C3, the C2, and the C1 tyre. We are ready to run those tyres. It will be the soft and the hard that go a long way to deciding things, and we take you to pictures that are trackside. Good evening and welcome to Formula One in 2024. Here's the starting grid with Alpine at the back, Ocon ahead of Gasly. Gasly starting 20th for the second year in a row. Then it's Zhou Guanyu next to Logan Sargent, 17th and 18th on the grid for Sauber and Williams. Then it's Kevin Magnussen and Valtteri Bottas, 15th and 16th. We move next to Daniel Ricciardo in 14th place, Alex Albon, the lead Williams on the grid for the 23rd time in a row. Then it is Lance Stroll in 12th position, Yuki Tsunoda, the lead RB in 11th place. Nico Hülkenberg, one of the stars of qualifying, a superb 10th place. Lewis Hamilton's worst ever starting position here at the Bahrain Grand Prix. Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris make it 2 McLarens in the top 10. Norris the lead one once more. Fernando Alonso was so pleasantly surprised to be P6. Sergio Perez made an error at turn 1, and that left him in 5th place when he felt the front row was possible. Sainz is 4th, George Russell's best ever starting position at this track layout. Charles Leclerc on the front row for the 6th Grand Prix in a row. Guess who's P1? Max Verstappen, pole position for the 33rd time in his career. It is Formula One in 2024. This is the Bahrain Grand Prix, and we are in for a Saturday night fight. In commentary box 31, we are poised and ready to call the opening race of the year. And wherever you may be, wherever you are listening and watching, it is fantastic to welcome you to this commentary box. I'm Alex Shakes. This is 13-time Grand Prix winner David Coulthard. He's next to Jolyon Palmer, who will analyse things for us. Gentlemen, it is time for the rubber to hit the road.
I love it. And the very fact that we've got such a tight qualifying grid fills us full of hope, or certainly me full of hope, that we're going to see a tight Grand Prix. Strategy will always play, but for me, if Charles Leclerc really wants to stamp something from Ferrari, he wants to send it down the inside into turn 1.
I hope we see some of that. They've had some really interesting fights at the first corner, haven't they? Very recently, Abu Dhabi, Las Vegas, the last two Grand Prix, there were a couple of months ago, so they know how to go wheel to wheel on the front row. But can anyone stop Max Verstappen today? I think that's the first question.
There is the man on pole position once again. And for all the effort, these are brand new cars, 10 brand new prototype cars. And yet, Red Bull have stolen the march once more. The grandstand is packed. We're at the top row of it, looking down at this magnificent scene as everyone is about to reveal the tyres that they are on. And we look for any variation, or have they all gone for the soft rubber in the field to get that launch off the line? It has been 98 long days of waiting, but this is nearly the hour that we get things up and running once again. 6 o'clock local time. The green light is illuminated atop the gantry, and we will see Max Verstappen lead them on their way. Verstappen, then Leclerc, then George Russell. Everyone seemingly on that soft tyre that we can see at the top. In fact, everyone is on that soft tyre, so no variation at all. I can't remember that happening, but very, very interesting. Everyone's gone that way. We are expecting it to be a 2-stop Grand Prix. This is the first formation lap of the year.
Normally you've got 1 or 2 chances further back. The fact you're doing something different and luck in with maybe a safety car or just better pace later on, when we're expecting this degradation to be quite high, and that's why 2 stops is usually the order of the play here. But everyone has thought we cannot afford to give up the grip at the start. No one wants to go near a medium tyre. It's not quick enough, it degrades too much, so it's soft and hard that we're expecting to see, and everyone is on the same as you said.
It doesn't happen very often, but unanimous decision across the grid. That start is vitally important. I know it is a long Grand Prix, 57 racing laps, but if you can carry momentum and gain a few places into turn 1, that can change and transform your Grand Prix.
It's not the hardest circuit to overtake on. There are 3 DRS zones around the track, some big braking areas into first corner and the fourth corner. So we have some monumental scraps around, so the race is very long. But I think it's more around this sort of area. George Russell, the Ferraris, Sergio Perez in the mix as well with a new set of tyres to use today. That's where it's going to be critical to make places, but keep your nose clean as well.
You're looking at the previous winners on the right-hand side. Max Verstappen, just the 1 win here. Charles Leclerc taking the season opener in 2022. And then it was Lewis Hamilton territory. What a race we saw from Verstappen and Hamilton back in 2021. We have seen some classic Grand Prix around this circuit. We're on board with Nico Hülkenberg. We have said goodbye to Günther Steiner. Hülkenberg, though, continuing the tradition of finding his way into the final part of qualifying. He's inside the top 10. Can he change the narrative for Haas? Can he prove they've got pace when it comes to the Grand Prix, not just the end of the qualifying hour?
So many teams think they've made progress on race pace. This is where we're going to find out what's true and what is still work to be done. And a team like Haas are in that scenario. Certainly Ferrari are as well. We've seen some great 1-lap pace. Can they do it over a race distance?
Red Bull have won 31 of the last 33 Grand Prix. And their defeats were Sao Paulo in 2022 and Singapore in 2023. But this is 2024, and the pre-season form counts for absolutely nothing. The revs rising, along with the tension. We're on our feet in the commentary box, so are the crowd in the grandstand. This is what all the hard work has been for.
It's where dreams are made and shattered at the same time. The optimism, the anticipation, let's go racing.
Brand new technology, the same drivers, an unaltered grid for the first time in championship history, from the last race to the first race. So we know their names and we know their ability. What we don't know is how the first race of the year will pan out. Our journey around the world to crown a champion is going to start in a few moments' time. Alpine are the last cars into position. Green flag at the back. Formula One in 2024 begins when the 5 red lights go out. The The new season is underway, and it's a good reaction time for Max Verstappen. Little bit of a wiggle when he applied the power for the second part of the start, but he maintains the lead. Charles Leclerc trying to go around the outside. How brave is he feeling? He's not. He's in second place, and it's Sergio Perez who finds himself in fourth. George Russell is in third place. The spinner was Lance Stroll in the background for Aston Martin. It's Max Verstappen with the lead. Who will be second? There's damage to one of the Saubers in the background there, falling to the back of the field. I believe it's Valtteri Bottas. Side by side, the two McLarens go. Verstappen, then Leclerc, Russell being harried, and it's Lando Norris who's ahead of his teammate.
Yeah, I think Stroll might have been tagged, so that might explain some of the damage on the, was it the Sauber that you mentioned? But otherwise, clean start, so no sort of first day back at school nerves.
But watch out for Perez. He had a really good launch in the second Red Bull, and he's tucked right in behind George Russell as well. So we know the Red Bull should be pretty quick, and Perez is making a move straight away.
Alonso having to take avoiding action into turn 10. He was trying to avoid the back of Carlos Sainz. Gaining a position was Perez. Losing a position was Carlos Sainz. That was the only change in the top 5. Further back, though, further down, Hülkenberg dropping down 9 places. We saw Stroll spun round. They were in close proximity on the grid. You had Stroll in 12th. The car in front was Nico Hülkenberg in 10th. And they've both had drama on the opening lap of the year. We're completing the 3.3 miles. Your race leader is Max Verstappen, and he's over a second clear of Charles Leclerc. That is important stuff, because we are getting on with it with DRS this year in comparison to other years. Lap 2 of 57. The McLarens look like they're going to go wheel to wheel again. Looks like it's a good run off the corner for Oscar Piastri, but he knows he's fighting his teammate. Further back, that does not apply. RB of Daniel Ricciardo going up against Logan Sargent.
Hülkenberg's headed to the pits, so I assume there's some damage on that car. That sinking feeling when you've had a strong qualifying and then it all goes away in the first lap.
Yeah, we won't even find out about his race pace in the middle of the pack, because it's all come undone on the first corner. Really, really close racing still between Ricciardo and Sargent up towards turn 4. So Sargent had a decent start, 18th on the grid, up to 14th. The other Williams of Alex Albon staring at points. He's in 11th.
This is car number 27. This is Nico Hülkenberg getting back into the race, but that is a long way off the back of the pack as well. And all that expectation and the hope of finding out some answers and scoring points today, it expires at turn 1. He hasn't scored points in the Grand Prix for 18 races.
That is the thing with Hülkenberg. We talk about him so often on one-lap pace. It's terrific. It's one of the great qualifiers out there. I need to see a replay of what happened there, but they started alongside each other, Hülkenberg and Stroll, and immediately one corner and his race is gone.
Yeah, we need to see a replay to see whether it was just a racing incident or blame lies in one corner or the other. But yeah, he's not quite getting the reputation of a Jarno Trulli, who was a brilliant qualifier, and then the nickname was the Trulli train, wasn't it? He backed everyone up. But Nico doesn't seem to convert the race days.
Do you think Trulli will ever live that down?
No.
The Trulli train will live on forever.
Victim of his own success. He was very quick on one lap, and it just did not equate when the 5 red lights went out. Confirmation that we've got that under investigation. That is a pass for position. That is Lando Norris getting past Fernando Alonso. Alonso pleasantly surprised yesterday that the green Aston Martin was quick over one lap, but he was worried. This is George Russell trying to go all the way around the outside and get past Charles Leclerc, and he'll do so. What a way to start your season, George Russell, with a fine move around the outside.
Yeah, sorry Alex, we just caught the back end of it, but I've got to assume slipstream, brave on the brakes, and that corner does lend itself to being able to run it out. It's typically on the inside, but he's done it on the outside.
Yeah, you can go either way. It's brave. Leclerc with a big lockup as well. He's struggling a lot in these early laps, and that's going to drift him back towards Checo here as we ride on board the Red Bull. They were really close into turn 1. It's DRS on the exit of turn 1 as well, and Charles was very fair, covering the inside, didn't wash wide, but what a beauty of a move from George Russell.
Plays the car really well, finds himself in second place. Leclerc has stayed within DRS, he's going to need to do so. Perez has looked really nimble, agile, able to manipulate the car where he wants to. Max Verstappen has a lead of 1.9 seconds, but the Red Bull in the hands of Perez looks like it could be a dream day for the Red Bull. Out front, they're looking to do what they did last year and claim a 1-2.
With triple DRS, it's so important to stay within a second of the car ahead. Verstappen is already running away, 1.9 seconds clear. Russell actually slightly quicker than him on the last lap though. But look at that train now behind Russell. It was Leclerc before, and the Mercedes still slightly draggier than the cars around him. He's got to try and break clear of that DRS.
You're absolutely right. You want to stay within that 1 second window, but Julian, put us in the cockpit. That takes away some downforce, and the car then doesn't have the grip in the corner. What does that feel like?
I think we saw it with Leclerc locking up as soon as he was behind the Mercedes on the last lap. Suddenly it feels like it's floating a little bit more. You've got to be more cautious on the brakes. You're fighting a little bit more on the steering as well coming through the corner. You are losing a little bit of the crucial downforce, but you're gaining so much on the straight with the DRS.
Let's go back to the start of the Grand Prix. It was an even launch, a little bit of a wiggle for Max Verstappen there, but he covered off Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, just the last bit of deployment. You've got a huge amount of acceleration from the electrical energy. Charles Leclerc tried to get it around the outside, and then Perez there, almost looking like he was going to rear-end him. We just missed the back end of that incident that saw Lance Stroll, excuse me. Well, he got off the line really well, so he was feeling racy as he ran to turn 1.
So that's Hulkenberg is cleared, and then they're going to have contact. That's what's going to happen. Hulkenberg's going to hit the back. And round he goes.
Yeah, so Stroll immediately took the place, and then had a nose down on the inside. This will be the better shot of it. That's the Aston Martin ahead. He's got his teammate already. There's 5 places difference between those two on the grid. And, that's all on Hulkenberg, isn't it? Just drifted into the back and completely rear-ended Stroll.
Yeah, that wasn't even as if he was locked up and just like really overspeeding the corner. It was almost like he just rammed him at the apex there. Great getaway from Valtteri. Then you can see Hulkenberg on his left. He backs out of it. He's going to have a great view of what goes on here. And I think, does he touch the back of Hulkenberg as well?
Does the same thing. So they're all slowing up, bunching up behind Stroll, who's slow at the apex from the inside line. Hulkenberg goes slowly, not slowly enough, tips Stroll into a spin, which slows him up even more. And then Bottas into the back of Hulkenberg.
Yeah, joining the battle here between Leclerc and Perez. That was Leclerc going off track as he went onto the back straight.
So it is very, very frantic stuff in the last couple of laps for Charles Leclerc. He is still in the same position he was in when we went to the start replays. That's not the case for Oscar Piastri. Upper place, he's gone past Fernando Alonso. Both McLarens getting by.
Leclerc locking up again. He was attacking that corner so much in qualifying yesterday. He was finding a lot of time, but that aggressive braking style is causing him plenty of lockups. And Perez sniffing around the back of the Ferrari, cannot make it through at turn 11. You can't really send in a late braking move there. And Leclerc has the DRS on the back of Russell still, so Perez not able to get a big overspeed on the straights. He's very, very scrappy, debating track limits for Russell, but I think everyone could be in the same boat right now.
He's clinging onto it as it stands. Stroll has just gone past Valtteri Bottas. Those recovering from the first turn incident. The Aston Martin has passed the Sauber. It's only for 18th place, but we'd like to keep you as updated as we can. Norris in 6th, then Piastri. Alonso having no race pace at this stage of the Grand Prix.
Verstappen 1 second quicker than George Russell for the last 2 laps. Stretching his legs now, 4 seconds clear of the pack. Not helped by the fact that Russell is looking in his mirrors so much. This triple DRS means that he cannot escape the attention of Leclerc, who's got Perez in sights right there as well.
Slightly surprised that Hamilton hasn't made a bit more progress as Alonso has made his way backwards. And, well, it is difficult to run in that dirty air, but the Mercedes, clearly in the hands of George Russell, has got some good race pace.
Yeah, so he's in a DRS train as well, isn't he? The McLarens have steadily passed Fernando Alonso. Lando did it a while ago. This is Oscar Piastri sneaking up the inside on the previous lap. And for now, Alonso is staying within DRS range of Piastri. As soon as that breaks, I think Hamilton will be through as well, because the Aston Martin doesn't look like it's got the race pace.
Well, George Russell, when he got that DRS for the first time, took the position away from Charles Leclerc. It's our move of the race so far. Plenty more you would imagine to come, given how close together this battle is, all for second position. Russell was talking about this on the driver's parade before the Grand Prix, saying, we think Max might run and hide, but for second place, it's going to be very close. Russell, at the moment, being proved right.
Yeah, I think that the Ferrari now settled down. There was a couple of little mistakes there from Leclerc, but now he looks like he's good pace.
Right there, flashing through on the exit of turn 13. Sainz is looking good as well in the second Ferrari, much more consistent, and he's looked good in this car the whole way through pre-season as well, so don't discount him behind Sergio Perez. All four of these guys battling out for second place.
One thing that's really hurting Sergio Perez, he says he's got understeer through the final corner. It's hurting him onto this key overtaking opportunity, and it's meaning that Charles Leclerc, despite a few ragged laps, is unable to do, Perez is unable to do anything about Charles Leclerc at the moment.
Sainz very close into turn one. You can see him just having a little glimpse in his mirrors as well, making sure no one's sending anything down the inside, but he's got 3 seconds back to Lando Norris for now. There's the gap. Also close, they've all got to check their mirrors, make sure that they're not making any mistakes, because this is super tight, all for second place. The DRS really bunching them.
Yeah, now this is good close racing, and none of them looking like they're trying to do tyre preservation.
Hey, good to know.
And rumour has it that Scottish girlfriend is his superpower. Carlos Sainz showing some great race pace.
It's good to know, says the engineer. Be good to show for Ferrari if he's able to get by. Perez, if you gave Perez clear air, it'd be a different story. He might be about to get it. He draws alongside the Scarlet Ferrari. Leclerc has been driving on his mirrors time and time and time again. And to the inside, car 11 at turn 11, Perez improves. He's up to third place.
Still running right together though, coming up the hill. I think Leclerc must have made another mistake at turn 10 to be passed in that manner at that part of the circuit. And now there's a question about the team orders, because we just heard Carlos on the radio saying he's much quicker than those ahead. Now it's his teammate ahead.
Well, that's a big call, isn't it? Unless Charles is saying he's got an issue, I don't expect Ferrari to get involved in this particular battle right now.
Very scrappy at the moment though, isn't he? Dropping back from second place. There's a break of more than a second between Russell and Perez, but that may well close if the Red Bull's got the pace we expect it does. And Sainz opens the DRS, but his teammate's got DRS ahead.
So, defensive move having to be thrown by Sergio Perez. 3-car battle for the third position, for the last place on the podium. And Leclerc is going to try and come back immediately here. He does not want a repeat of Monza last year, where he'd fought with his teammate time and time again, lap after lap. And that day, it was Sainz who climbed onto the podium at the Scuderia's home race. This is further back. We're going to go up the hill out of 8, down the hill to 10. And this is going to be how Sergio Perez got past.
It's going to be a lock-up, there it is. He got so close to Russell, actually, Leclerc, but he kept doing that lock-up in these opening laps, and he's done it again on lap 7, just catching at the end of braking, turning it in. It's unloaded that front left and just washes him wide to the exit curb, and through goes Perez, saying thank you very much.
Now, easy to criticise, difficult to do, but once you've already seen you've got an issue at that particular turn, he can make a brake balance adjustment, he can be more cautious on his braking. One mistake at this level, you can kind of say, and I know, and we know, Julian, how difficult that corner is, but to do it twice so early, that shows, to me, a little bit of a muddled mind. You know, he hasn't calmed down at this stage of the race.
He's done it a few times and not run off the road as well. It's a bit of a bogey corner that he was really strong on yesterday in qualifying by being committed on the brakes, but he's got to rein it back in a little bit. Also, once you start locking up, it's easier to lock up again. You start spotting the tyre a little bit, and a corner that's already so front limited on the brakes just becomes an absolute nemesis.
State of the race so far, a turn 1 incident for Hulkenberg hitting Stroll, and then Bottas caught up in that as well. It was our first corner crash, and that's a lock-up again for Charles Leclerc. It invites his teammate to the party. Carlos Sainz now, all over the road, fighting the car. Leclerc has DRS ahead. It's absolutely crucial in his defence, and it's no opportunity at this stage for the Spanish driver, the winner of the Singapore Grand Prix last year.
What other toys can he play with to reduce that? He can do brake balance, and I'm thinking, what's the next thing he can do?
Well, you've got engine braking. You can put a little bit more engine braking on, so you've got overrun, as Sainz now has a lock-up on the front right there as well. The more engine braking you've got, the more you're doing it on the rear axle, and less work on the brake pedal and the front. You can also open up the differential, so you can turn in with a little bit more speed maybe, and sort of change your driving style a little bit. But typically it's just changing your brake balance, move it rearwards, and you can actually fine-tune it, so it's even on particular corners or a particular phase of a corner you can move it rearwards. But he will be well aware of this, Charles, and he's still not able to do that without giving up a huge amount of lap time.
It's interesting, the psychology as well. If I try and put myself back in the cockpit a long time ago in the dark edges, when you feel you're on top of the car, you just breathe, your confidence grows. When you're in a situation like that where you're a bit scrappy and you just can't quite find your rhythm, it just makes you tense, doesn't it?
Yeah, you second guess yourself all the time coming into that corner, lap and lap again. The other thing is, when you're the driver behind and you see someone being scrappy, it's really nice to see, isn't it? You're wondering if they're going to make a mistake, and you're starting to think they're ragged and you're going to get your chance.
Talking of chances, Lewis Hamilton is in the slipstream of Fernando Alonso. These two had a great battle here last year. There is no battle this year. Hamilton getting past, and Alonso's fears about the race pace are proving correct. Aston Martin made such a leap coming into this season, and it was a great opportunity to have another run. Hamilton knows who he's battling against, but Alonso, I think, is thinking of his own Grand Prix here. And Hamilton, who sacrificed some of that one-lap pace to focus on the race, has finally been able to make some progress, and he's up to P8.
Very disappointing start for Aston Martin.
Oh, off the road goes Logan Sargent, and Sargent bringing out the yellow flag. The Williams driver has gone deep. That's an unusual part of the racetrack. You don't often see someone straight on at turn 4, but that's where he is at the moment.
That'll be more than a yellow if he's locked in position, or is he coasting? Oh!
James Vowles, his team principal, looking on. The yellow flag continues to be out. Does he have drive in the car?
I think he's just rolling back on the gradient there, isn't he?
So they're going to have to do either virtual or full safety car. They won't want to deploy marshals to that.
And if they do that, this is going to be our first pit stop window. We're almost there anyway. Lap 11 to 13 with the predictions, and we're pretty much going to be getting there. Although he has got the engine going, and he's going to be back in the race.
Fascinating to see a replay of what happened there for Logan Sargent. So he's been parked there for a long time. Two Ferraris about to do battle. Monza all over again. Look at that, sparks flying as the teammates go wheel to wheel. To the inside, Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc refusing to give it up, but he's got no choice. And that was elbows out brilliance from Carlos Sainz.
I have to apologise to Julian. I got my hands all over him because I thought they were about to have contact. The worst scenario if two teammates come together. If it's two Ferrari teammates, but credit to them, they did it and they managed it and they didn't touch.
You wince when there's a nose being dangled on the inside of turn 2. Oh, I thought that was going to happen as well. Respect between the two. They've shown it in the past. That was so close.
We had more contact up here.
Yeah, apologies.
That was DC trying to stay in his seat because it looked for all the world that Charles Leclerc was going to run into the side of his teammate. Sergio Perez has made quick progress to the back of George Russell, trying to make it that Red Bull 1-2. But he definitely fancied he had the opportunity to complete. Perez on the grid earlier on. So Leclerc having a really strange race by his standards, stepping backwards now from second at the start to fifth, and he was working the wheel through that final real corner of the racetrack, left him vulnerable onto the main straight.
Well, that was the start of slightly scrappy entry to the straight. Nothing much he could do against DRS. Carlos will be a little bit maybe frustrated that he didn't send it further on the braking, and that allowed them to run side by side into 2. Meanwhile, this is where Logan had the issue, so a big lock-up. It's almost sounded like the throttle was still pushing on.
He's got brake issue, so I think he's lost the brake-by-wire, and all the braking has gone to the front axle there, so he's locked up the right front, and then they've managed to sort it out. He's come back into the pits and gone out again. There he is on the left-hand side.
So the frustration was a problem with the braking. You can see that George Russell maintained position ahead of Charles Leclerc, who is exiting the pits now, and they've come back out into the pack.
So Russell's had to cover off Perez. They're getting towards crunch time of that first pit stop window. Russell's gone early. Leclerc naturally pitting in early as well because he was struggling so much on that stint.
Here's an opportunity for Valtteri Bottas, who's got damage to the front wing there. The end plate from turn 1 is askew, DC.
Yeah, that is certainly not as designed. And it'll be interesting to see actually whether that's hindering aerodynamic performance. It looks draggy, but it might actually be scooping the air nicely round that front right. But that does throw back to that contact with Hülkenberg on the first corner of the first lap.
So Perez has a chance now to go long, extend this stint and clear all of these Mercedes Ferraris that he's been scrapping with for 11 laps. Russell pitting has released him.
He's off again. He's off again. How many times is that in this Grand Prix? Charles Leclerc, who is usually phenomenal in his consistency, is struggling, having gone to the hard tyres.
Yeah, I think that's the case. He's pushing, trying to do a quali lap, knowing that he's going to try and exploit those initial increase in grip from the fresher tyres. He's got the traffic, as we now see Perez head to the pit.
So Perez going as well, from the soft to the hard. That's the expected strategy. 2 stops expected in the background as well. Oscar Piastri and Lewis Hamilton, the driver we're on board with, as the flurry of stops begin. And now it's all about outlap versus outlap. It will be fascinating to see whether Perez is able to claim the place. We'll have a look at the track in a few moments' time. Russell gets ahead. There's a lock-up there. Perez maintains the place ahead of Charles Leclerc. Piastri maintains the place ahead of Lewis Hamilton.
And I think Perez was having to cover off Leclerc as well, who's now cleared Bottas. In fact, Bottas pitted, and if he'd stayed another lap, might have been back behind the Ferrari. So Perez not able to extend more than 1 lap on George Russell for fear of moving back behind the Ferraris again.
Yeah, so that initial pit stop going early has certainly worked for Russell and got him back the track position, but will he be able to hold it? So here we go again, down into the same G, he almost whacked into the back of the Sauber.
So soft on the brake pedal, it looked like he just didn't want to press any harder on it because he's had that lock up the whole way through the first stint, and he didn't want to flat spot this set of hard tyres that's got to go further into the race.
Interesting dynamic at play at the moment. Daniel Ricciardo has yet to visit the pit lane. He's still there. They're racing for position. This isn't a lap situation. There'll be no blue flags. You're looking at the new livery for the RB team. Once AlphaTauri, before that Toro Rosso, before that Minardi. Commuters of a certain age, but we've got Daniel Ricciardo ahead of George Russell for the moment. It's going to change. Russell trying to get on with it as quickly as possible, and you can see why when Perez is looming. And there were no shenanigans from junior team to help senior team.
Yeah, this will actually work quite well for Perez because he'll get the benefit of the slipstream initially off the final corner and the DRS.
Russell caught Ricciardo at a bad point there. In fact, he just managed to get the DRS as well, which is critical. Otherwise, I think Perez would be on him, even so, he's right there. And there's another DRS zone coming up just here.
Well, Perez is going to have a great opportunity. Norris did cover off Piastri, and Hamilton rejoins the place at the track in the same position he was in. Sainz has been called in. There is the one move you're allowed to make. Perez knows what's coming, tries the up and under, applies the power, super aggressive stuff, and position gains for Sergio Perez, who moves in to a net 2nd place in the race.
What I'm loving about that, though, there was no sort of, okay, there's no point me over-defending because, you know, we've got a long Grand Prix. This is feisty stuff from George Russell. I've got confidence that they're confident to push on the tyre, and this is actual race pace.
And from Mercedes as well, to pit him in to cover off Perez. They think they're in a straight fight with the second Red Bull, and this was it on the circuit. Russell from the inside, not able to get the car turned in, almost bolted off the track when he saw the Red Bull on the exit.
Caught by surprise.
And through goes Sergio Perez into what will be 2nd place behind his teammate once the pit stops shake out.
Here's Carlos Sainz visiting the pit lane. Lots of action in the first 15 laps. I can tell you that Max Verstappen's still out there, serenely sailing on by in 1st place.
Yeah, it really is a fairly quiet afternoon. A little bit of defence down into turn 1, but other than that, he's just been able to control this race. Let's see where Sainz comes out. We've got Perez and Leclerc going across start-finish line now, so I think they're going to come out still in front of him.
Cars absolutely everywhere here, so Sainz finding himself behind his teammate as he rejoins. Take a couple of corners as well to get those tyres into the optimum window, and Sainz's brilliant overtake, counting for very little.
I just cannot get out of blocking everywhere.
So you can move the brake balance back, which is the obvious thing to do. You can change your braking style, potentially just brake a little bit earlier and a little bit softer. But the more you move your brake balance back, you start to overheat the rear tyres, which is something that Ferrari have struggled with in the past as well. So you don't want to put too much energy through the rears. And so it seems the obvious thing to do now, but that's the other end of it when you then start to use the rear axle more and overheat them. It looks more composed in this stint. Leclerc's also got ahead of Sainz in the pit stop phase. That's an interesting call from Ferrari to invert the cars effectively by pitting Leclerc first and giving him the undercut over his teammate.
Carlos Sainz, who will be leaving the team at the end of the year. Ferrari have always protested that the drivers were treated equally, but one was shown the door, and the hard reality of that, speaking volumes, it will be Lewis Hamilton in that cockpit this time next year. We'll wait for next year. Fernando Alonso, longest stint, 16 laps, really taking it to the limit of what that soft tyre can do. He's coming in from second.
Yeah, it's the brutal nature of sport, and a sport like Formula One. It's a question of whether it's the driver or the team that served the divorce papers. In the case of Lewis Hamilton, he took the front foot and told Mercedes he's leaving. That meant, of course, Ferrari had to make that awkward call to Carlos Sainz, who's a great asset for any other team.
Very tight with Alex Albon peeling into the pits there, but it was all okay. Nothing unsafe there, just very, very close in the pit lane as he pits, currently P10.
On this hard tyre, the Ferraris are looking better than the Mercedes considerably. Russell's let Perez go through. Perez is escaping. Red Bull now 1-2 and 2 seconds between Perez and Russell in second and third. But this is the shot from visor cam. Charles Leclerc in fourth place. And now this is the battle for third. The final podium set in for the rest of the race. There looks not very much between these two cars on race pace.
Interesting is we're at this stage, lap 15. The only person not to pit, of course, is our race leader, who should comfortably, well, certainly will comfortably be able to do so at his leisure. A normal pit stop from the Red Bull team. We'll see him good as the two Ferraris, excuse me, getting oh so close.
Well, stand by, make sure that DC's well planted in the seat, because they're about to do battle once again. They're about to fight like they did a couple of laps ago. Sainz just has, on the evidence of the first 17 laps, a better balance with that Ferrari.
We were on board with Leclerc there, weren't we? And he didn't look like he did anything wrong at turn 10, but maybe he was just more cautious, and that allowed Carlos to pounce and be much better on the brakes, get the car turned and be more aggressive with it. And he's close again coming out of this final corner, just 4 tenths between them. But you can see Leclerc's got the DRS open, which will save his bacon for now, I think. Maybe.
Do you want to edit it any further?
Oh!
Here we go. That's a late lunge and a half. My word, from downtown to take the place from Carlos Sainz. He came from another postcode.
I love it. I love it. I love to see drivers having the confidence to send it on the brakes. And if you want to win races and you want to win championships, you've got to have that kind of bravery.
It's beautiful stuff from Sainz. I do think his racecraft is one of the best in the field. He's right up there. We've seen it already, close racing between the two, but that send on the brakes, DRS for both of them, just terrific stuff. And he's going to now fancy a good look at passing Russell as well for a podium.
Carlos Sainz, a driver with a point to prove. He's going to move Formula One teams next year. We don't know where, but surely there are many that would like a move like that. Incredible.
That is a humdinger of a move, isn't it?
That's I'm coming through, or both of us are not leaving this corner. That's, you leave your competitor no choice.
You don't see them too often. A big lunge like that, a couple of car lengths back.
Meanwhile, in the lead, Max Verstappen on his marks, one of the few hurdles in his way on the evidence of the first 18 laps, 2.9 seconds. Doesn't this tell the story of the last few years in Formula One? He is all by himself.
My car is fully going to the right when I'm braking.
Okay, we are checking.
Like this, I cannot fight. Dangerous.
Ding, 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 ding. Tick off. We are checking for the first time. Oh, another chance. Here we go. Big sparks flying down into turn number 1. Carlos Sainz has the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. He's got the bit between his teeth. He's got all the racing cliches that you want. But either way, he is driving in a way at this circuit that we've never seen from him before. It's been the Charles Leclerc show in the past. That is a rocket ship move. Say goodbye to Carlos Sainz, because he's going to go and chase the Red Bulls.
This is still early in the 24 season, but if this is the Carlos Sainz we're going to have, this is a complete race driver.
He has been sensational so far.
Absolutely terrific 18 laps for him. Up into third place. Can he now ditch Russell out of that DRS? Because the pace he's been going is right there with Perez. He's right there on Red Bull pace. That's Checo just leaving the shot at the top there, not disappearing away. And the racecraft is just so clinical from him.
Well, two absolutely phenomenal moves from Carlos Sainz, lighting up the season opener. And Perez will have to get on with it. We're looking into the eyes of a driver He really does have the point to prove. He's got options. He's got an option to go to Aston Martin. He's got an option to go to the team that's currently called Sauber, that used to be called Alfa Romeo, that will be called Audi. He's got plenty of options. Charles Leclerc, he's reported on the radio trouble with the braking, and we've seen at least 5 or 6 issues. That was a minor lock-up there, but he doesn't have the confidence, and that's him off the road once again.
This is the lock-up montage, isn't it? That was the Red Bull ahead of him on the last one. Red Bull behind him on that one. That's from much earlier on in the race. Just cannot stop the car. I wonder if it's brake temperature related, that he's got some brake steer as well. That one side is working a little bit better than the other.
Yeah, the only other thing that can give you a car sort of pulling to one side is if you have massive offset and the actual wheel balance, the weight or the wheel weights across the car. But there's nothing that should have changed unless he's actually got a damage to the mechanical element of the car.
So Lance Stroll hit at the start of the Grand Prix by a Haas, has another one chasing him at the moment. Everyone started on the soft tyre, everyone's moved to the hard tyre, but some ages of tyre are different. We've got Max Verstappen at the top of your screen. We're watching that progress at the moment, checking the steering wheel display to see how it's going for him as it stands. He's just done the personal best first sector of the race so far. Talking of the steering wheel, Logan Sargent's team Williams, they changed the steering wheel. You heard his frustration on the radio earlier on, that cry of exasperation that he'd gone deep. Was at turn 4, the runoff for a long time. They switched the steering wheel at the stop. He's back into the race, but as you can see, long way off and needs safety car intervention if he's going to have anyone else to race for the remainder of the season opener. In the background there, we saw off the road and recovering the RB of Daniel Ricciardo, who is up against Esteban Ocon.
There's 10th place up for grabs as well, with Stroll being hit. The top 5 teams look to be a little bit ahead on race pace, but Lotto's miles clear of the RBs in this one as well. Hamilton's still making slow progress. He's actually slower than the McLaren's ahead at the moment in this phase. So Hamilton 4 seconds back from Piastri, and he's only got 9th to 8th. Russell drifting way down from Sainz. He's not got pace on the hard tyres either. The Mercedes is not working very well right now.
It's great we were able to stay on board all lap with Max Verstappen. That was the fastest lap of the Grand Prix last time around, a 1:35.283. This is a look on board at Daniel Ricciardo, 8-time Grand Prix winner. Wasn't with us at the start of last season. Takes the lights today, trying to win himself a place in the senior team next year.
I've been watching from the inside of that corner last week in testing. FP3, I've been watching there in practice, and everyone's been so neat and tidy. It's been the classic corner where you see these lockups for years and years. It always is. You move the brake balance backwards, you do things from the car to try and stop that front locking. I thought I'm going to go down and see some of the action. So tidy. I wonder if, firstly we're in a race, you've got the enticement of a car ahead to try and hunt down. I wonder if the lack of wind is making a little bit of a difference as well. They've had a bit of a headwind in there for 2 weeks basically, and now the wind's really died down, so they're all maybe just pushing on a little bit more, and it's making that corner the beast it used to be.
Now that Palmer's gone, they're like, okay, right, let's have some fun. He's gone now, he's in the conbox. Verstappen again, fastest lap after fastest lap, just having fun out there and destroying the field as he does so.
Yeah, it's not just the fastest lap, it's the fastest lap by over a second. A second.
He's going to be gone, isn't he? He is only 7 seconds, but he pitted way later than Perez, so he's got fresher tyres, and he has a lot of margin in hand. Perez, 2/10 slower than Sainz on the last lap. So the battle for second, not done yet, and the battle for fourth, absolutely not done yet. Even though Leclerc's struggling with his brakes, he's got his sights firmly set on that Mercedes ahead.
Well, to continue the theme of Red Bull domination, it is worth saying that for all of their ability and their incredible run in the last couple of years, this is the opening race of the year. It's a brand new car, it's a brand new concept, and in that opening race of the year, it's not yours until you see the checkered flag. Here is Hülkenberg, who had a great qualifying day, but the Grand Prix day has not gone his way at the moment. He's another one at the back of the field, hoping for safety car intervention. So we look further beyond the top positions, down the order, and we can see that Daniel Ricciardo has managed to clear Esteban Ocon, his former teammates who were racing here when Esteban Ocon was second the Sakir on the outer loop back in 2020. This is how he was able to take the place.
No fight at all from the Alpine, waving him through. Just sorry state of affairs for Alpine, not least qualifying on the back row. They're not even putting up a fight with an RB.
Yeah, I think that the DRS obviously gave him a big momentum there, so probably little chance in weaving around. They're just focused on their own race, and as I mentioned in quality commentary yesterday, I think that Ocon's showing good long-term vision and not sort of dummy in the dust, this car's terrible and all that sort of thing. It's like, okay, we've got what we've got, let's just try and work on it and see where we can improve. And of course, after this weekend, the teams will have so much more data to look at in comparison to their competitors, and really then start to look at their development program and where they need to focus their budget cap energy.
They're fairly guaranteed a painful start to the year, but it is such a long season, 24 races. We have seen how teams can transform it. They're not going to be able to shed the weight out of the car or find too much probably for the next races in Jeddah or Melbourne, I wouldn't have thought, but they've got to have long-term vision and an awful lot of patience.
Yeah, tough situation for them. The French manufacturer finding themselves with the slowest car in the field after qualifying, and Grand Prix Saturday has not gone any better for them so far. We're on lap 22 of 57 at the season opener. Max Verstappen is running and hiding out front. He's got fresher tyres than all of his rivals behind, and he's got a lead of 8.9 seconds. Sainz and Perez last time around. Sainz marginally quicker, but very tight.
You are super quiet, man. Speak louder. Shout. You need to shout.
I want to hear the reply.
Yeah, that'll be his correspondence to his engineer, who, sometimes, I guess with the headset, sometimes you can sort of lose your volume. There he is. Oh, look at change the radio.
Q-Bird there does not have to bellow anymore. They've had a change of radio, and hopefully Sergio Perez can hear, because Sainz is a lock-up away. In a race of lock-ups, in a race of wide moments, anything like that for Perez, Sainz will be right there.
Flying at the moment. Look at the way he's dropping George Russell. A second quicker than Russell on the last lap. Russell's not defending, he's just got no pace. Sainz is really flying, and he was good in the first. He got the radio, remember, and said, I'm way quicker than these guys. He is. He's chasing Perez. They're very, very close on pace. It was just 0.03 of a second to Sainz on the last lap. But this looks like the fight for second. We thought it might be for third, but Sainz is actually clearing away from fourth place.
Yeah, he's right in the hunt there, isn't he? But I know Perez has got older tyres than Verstappen, but Verstappen's doing 35.2s, Perez in clean air is 36.0. You know, that's too much. Unless he has a balance issue. He was 4/10 away in quali. Normally he can be a little bit closer in the race. He's actually further away.
He's kind of carried on from the end of last year, hasn't he? The big reset hasn't looked like it's transformed to be the Sergio Perez at the start of last year. It's more the end of last year, but Red Bull have taken a step forward in the hands of Max. Pole yesterday, I think Max executed the perfect lap to achieve that, with a 4/10 gap to Perez.
And a slipstream though, so that probably helped him in that first sector.
Yeah, he had everything. That was about 1/10 of a second, the slipstream as well. So he had everything going for him in quali. But in the race trim right now, there's a second a lap on the last lap again. The gap up to 10 seconds and growing very quickly.
Our information from the pit lane is that George Russell is managing a power unit issue with the car. So the information there is that Mercedes, with that first race of the year, with it being brand new for so many different parts, power unit issue being managed by George Russell might explain the 5.5 second gap now.
Okay, that makes more sense because he's a couple of tenths a lap slower than the McLarens in 6th and 7th as well. And Lewis Hamilton, a couple of tenths slower, matching those McLarens. So they're all bunching up. There's not big gaps yet between Russell in 4th, Leclerc in 5th, we know he's right with him. But look, Norris and Piastri not miles away. Hamilton's got them in sight on the main straight as well. 4th all the way down to 8th, not separated by a huge amount.
So we had contact at the first corner between Hülkenberg and Stroll. Bottas got caught up in it. We've seen some brilliant overtaking moves. First of all, George Russell was able to go the long way round, up against Charles Leclerc. Then Carlos Sainz just went past both of them after the pit stop sequence. We've got drivers who have been on their tyres for as long as 13 laps on the hard. We've got drivers who have been there as short as 9 laps for Yuki Tsunoda or 7 laps for our race leader, Max Verstappen. So we have them all on the same strategy, going from soft to hard. But there is variation of when they came in and made their stop. Starting season 2 in Formula 1, Oscar Piastri, 2.6 seconds away from Lando Norris. McLaren talking down their chances coming into this one. We know that Charles Leclerc is nursing a feel of car, an issue with the brakes, which means that he's not able to attack this racetrack as he has done so to devastating effect in the past when he was the winner of the 2022 Bahrain Grand Prix, and he should have been the winner of the 2019 Bahrain Grand Prix, but the Ferrari had a reliability issue on that day. Out front, Max Verstappen has led from the off. About the only issue he had was a little bit of a wiggle when he had the second part of the start and the electrical deployment, and since then we occasionally check in with him just to make sure he's there, and he is waltzing off into the distance. But we have a really interesting battle for second place.
Biggest loss.
Let's see, it's broken.
Okay, copy.
And how is that going to be affecting the driver, former drivers? What are we going for? How does that affect you when it is so tight in the cockpit where you are strapped in and the cockpit's as wide as the driver, as we see here?
Yeah, well, I didn't have much of a seat being relatively tall, a bit taller than Lewis, and I expect the same for Julian, who I think you're a wee bit taller than me. So we were sort of bolted up against the fuel cell, so it wouldn't really have had a big issue, but maybe Lewis has sort of held forward slightly.
It depends where it's broken and how it's broken. If it's cracked somewhere and he's suddenly wriggling around slightly from the cockpit, you lose a bit of field and suddenly feels very strange in the car. As soon as you're moving around, the drivers are so used to being bolted in completely tight with barely the air to breathe and open your lungs up. So if you suddenly start to feel your body moving around, it can give you some strange sensations. I mean, we can't see anything looking back at Lewis, but I mean, there's so many different ways that could be.
James Owen on the data there for Williams, the race engineer for Alex Albon. We were riding with visor cam for Albon as well. He's in close proximity, you can see here, to Magnussen, and he knows he's got to make the move sooner rather than later because he had the message on the steering wheel, car too hot. And eventually, if you can't make the pass, you've got to drop back, you've got to cool the car. Yeah,
he's been trying for several laps, though. You can see he pulls out of the slipstream on the straight, not really to try and worry the Magnussen ahead, it's to get clean air through the side pods. So, yeah, he's feinting the lunge, but without actually following through.
This race is still very much on for the final point as well. Zhou currently in 10th, they're all on the same strategy, soft to the hard tyre. Zhou was the first of the conventional pitters on lap 9 with Lance Stroll as well, so they leapt up the order slightly, and this is one big train really from him in 10th, holding everyone back with various gaps, and if we go for the wide lens you probably see that.
Yeah, the Swiss-based team this year reverting to their original name of Sauber, based in Hinwil in Switzerland, and they love an alternative strategy at the start of the season. They love rolling the dice. They did it last year with Valtteri Bottas, and it got them the reward of 8th place, which is very useful overall. They didn't have a terrific season. Advantage when they were Alfa Romeo was having a light car at the start of the year. Since everyone's got the cars in roughly the same place in terms of weight, they have not really figured at the front of the field very regularly.
Yeah, well, that team now under the leadership of Andrea Seidel, who had previously been at McLaren, and I was talking to him earlier this weekend, I think it's very much about building for that moment when Audi come in as the named team.
Pyramid, blue 3, position 4, blue 3, position 4.
I can't, none of my dash is working because of this screen.
Okay, the screen maybe won't have an anti-reflection screen, but it looks like he's making the adjustments.
He's trying to do something, it looked like it went blank as he made one change, so is he stuck on one screen here?
This is a new steering wheel for Williams. Williams for years used to have the display mounted to the car, and the steering wheel was an old school one, which was just the implements, and Albon getting used to it and unable to make the changes.
I like a screen fixed to the chassis, because if you're in a really tight corner, Lowe's hairpin or Fairmont hairpin, for instance, the steering wheel's upside down. So if you were wanting to glance and read some information, unless you are talented at reading upside down, I know that's fairly extreme, but it's obviously irritated the driver.
But then your hands are blocking the display anyway when it's on the chassis.
Now, Lewis Hamilton, let's see what has happened to him. It's turn 10. It's more of the same. It's a wide moment.
Rubbering it in on the outside.
Hamilton earlier in the race as well was talking of an issue with the battery and saying that he was down to 1%, wasn't getting recharge, wasn't getting the energy back, so it may be an issue for both Mercedes in the Grand Prix.
Max Verstappen, last time around, 35.5. He's been so consistent, rattling out the times in the low 35s. Perez behind, 36.2, still being matched by Sainz in the 36.2, so that seems like that battle is going to continue towards the next round of pit stops.
Lance Stroll in, 2.8 second stop for the Canadian driver. Had a good end to the season. Lance Stroll finishing the points in the last 3 races of the year, including 2 fifth places in Vegas and in Sao Paulo. Yet out ahead. A dismal sentence for a driver that's been on the podium. He's battling with the driver that hit him at the first turn, but he's at least out ahead in 18th place. Heroics last year when he had 2 broken wrists and a broken toe, and managed to fight his way to the through to the points. But after that massive leap for Aston Martin, it's back down to earth this year, and 18th and 9th.
Information tire life is longer than expected.
Norris is just easing his way closer to this battle for 4th place as well. The McLarens looked like they were a little bit distant to the Mercedes-Ferrari guys in the first stint, but with Russell's lack of pace right now, Leclerc's not able to make any inroads, stuck 1.2 seconds away, not quite able to get within that crucial DRS second. And Norris just getting a little closer, a 10th here, 10th there.
Making our way through into the next stage of laps. Is anyone going to go nice and early? Oh, right on cue. That's excellent stuff from Joe Garneau, right on cue. I was looking down to see where the window opened, and he's a little bit ahead of the curve, coming in to change tyres.
So he's covering off Stroll, who pitted on the last lap, and these were the first 2 pitters on the first batch of stops. It's a decent enough stop there from Sauber, out on match Aston Martin, and here's the fight for 10th place at the moment.
It's going to be a long stint for both of them. They'll go to the end, but it's going to be a long stint. See the compromised entry into turn 1 when you come from the pit lane, and that covering off has worked, but they've both gone, so from Stroll's point of view, nothing to lose. Joe Garneau finding himself occupying the points, covering off that, and everyone will have to respond now because both of these have fresh rubber. And if you do not have the ultimate pace, or you've had an incident at the first turn, why not roll the dice? Why not force everyone else to make a key strategic call and follow whether they're going to stay out and trying to make passes late on, or whether they're going to cover you off so they don't lose track position.
They've done well, Aston Martin, and Stroll from the wheel as well to get him to a position where they can look at a point after that start and the whack from Hulkenberg.
It's that 30 of 57. Max Verstappen leads by 15 seconds. Sergio Perez and Carlos Sainz having one of these brilliant Formula One battles where there's not much to show you, but they are doing supremely well, the pair of them, at the start of the year. One lockup ends the fight for second place. Really clean driving from second and third at the moment. George Russell has reported to the team that there's a bit of an issue with the power unit, but he's still running ahead of Charles Leclerc, and Lando Norris is getting close to getting that gap under 2 seconds.
I kind of feel it's not slowing him down too much on the straights though, Russell, because Leclerc from that range would surely pick up a slipstream and somehow get within DRS range. So a minor issue for George. And when you look at the progress that Lewis Hamilton's making down in 8th, he's not really running much quicker than Russell.
Ferrari mechanics and standby as we get ready for the next round of pit stops. Just looking at the 2 McLaren drivers, pretty much nip and tuck. It's almost as if they're just comfortably accepting where they are at this stage of the season. And I suspect that if they did come away with a 6th and 7th, still a long way to go, then they would consider that pretty good start to the year in comparison to last season.
Yes, in comparison to previous seasons. That would be a good step forward, considering they're very much been on the back foot with all sorts of problems and having to update the car. But if you start the World Championship from Silverstone onwards last year, Lando Norris would have been second. Now, that's the sort of content that will get me a sharp reply in this commentary box. So I'm going to carry on talking as we look at Lewis Hamilton, but it shows you the progress that McLaren made, but only after we've had a lot of Grand Prix and we got all the way to the British Grand Prix in Silverstone, which has a new deal, new extension of the contract, and great news over the winter that Silverstone and Suzuka, two absolute classics, have extended their deal and will be part of the Formula 1 calendar for many years to come.
Yeah, I think that we can all, as Brits, be very excited about that. It gives a 10-year window of continual investment, which will see a number of new assets added to that track. Fan experiences, of course, at the forefront of modern Formula 1. So long may that continue. Meanwhile, on board with Magnussen, this is going to be a lock-up as he rolls the car into 10.
9-1 so far. Oh, it's lucky to make the broadcast with a lock-up that inconsequential. We've seen some serious moments off the road so far today, but it shows you how hard he's having to work to keep Albon behind.
He dealt with it in an acceptable way, that just wispy lock up and still managed to get it turned in for an apex. The race pace of the Haas isn't a disaster at this stage on a usually high deck track.
Horrible pit stop for Valtteri Bottas. He's been there for 39 seconds as they tried to get...
Wrong tyre.
Where have we gone here? Is that the nut being delivered? So that's the nut back to the gun. And this is game over, no matter what happens. So pit stops, this is one of greater consequence in the Grand Prix. George Russell coming in nice and early, getting another set of the hard tyres. Bottas, it's reminiscent of the nightmare he had in Monaco a few years ago, where his Grand Prix came to a close after the wheel machined on, the nut machined onto the wheel, and they couldn't get it off for about a week. George Russell gets past 52 seconds. And race ruined.
For a minute I thought it was going to be 52 seconds and an unsafe release at the end of it all, as well as the Mercedes came out. It's a testing session now for that time, and they still didn't fix the front wing and all of that.
Yeah, a while ago the gallery was asking me whether we thought it would be a black and orange flag situation. The FIA do have a flag in their armoury where they can mandate that car to come back to the pits for a repair, but it's still roughly in one piece, one torn piece in the front of the car.
What I would suggest is that they've got a bit too much layup, too much weight in that front wing end plate, unless they're trying to get the weight forward, because if it could stay attached with only partial full length attachment, then it's clearly quite strong. So that was front left, they had the issue, and then they decided that was the wrong wheel or tyre, or did the wheel get damaged?
I don't know if it went on straight when it went on to the onto the front left. It looked like one of the mechanics gave it a shove to try and hook it into place properly, and then they tried to do it up, and the nut didn't go round.
So Bottas finds himself at the back of the field. So Logan Sargent was parked in turn 4 for a long time. He's still 25 seconds off the back of Bottas, which shows you how much time the American driver lost. He's at the start of his second season, and we're avoiding the bump that is so talked about down there. Turning left at turn 10. This is the visor cam for the world champion and the man who looks like he's on his way to win his second Bahrain Grand Prix in his career.
Yeah, it was great to see that on board there. His initial turn into turn 10 was quite aggressive, actually, you know, exploiting the fact he's got speed and downforce, but it shows a confidence that we maybe don't see in some of the other cars, especially Leclerc, where you can see he gets that under rotation late in the entry phase.
Maxwell just releasing the brakes and able to carry the speed in the Red Bull. Shows he's got some decent rear grip as well. He's not going to try and step out on it.
Lance Stroll to the inside of Zhou Guanyu, who immediately positions the car. Zhou Guanyu, who's won Formula 2 races around this venue before, so he knows these dancing moves, trying to go wheel to wheel with another driver, immediately knew he was going to be passed and no response possible. Stroll goes through. Stroll's had actually really good pace on the tyre since he went for the stop, and despite all the effort, Zhou Guanyu can't keep the position.
He's had a good race, as Lance. This is the fight for net 10th place. Tsunoda, Albon and Ricciardo will all pit before the end of the race and drop behind them. They'll charge up on a fresh set of tyres, but Stroll there executing a nice move.
on board with George Russell, and he has come up to the back of two-time world champion Fernando Alonso. Alonso finds himself on 17-lap-old hard tyres, and Russell has a fresh set, so this will be a pass on track, but it's not much of a contest out there. Norris in the pits along with George Russell's teammate Lewis Hamilton as we see the pass, and it's as simple as you get. Still, that Mercedes sparking on the other tray time and time again. He easily gets past.
Not a lot wrong with the power unit though, is there? When you see him up behind another car and just dropping straight around him with the DRS. Norris coming out of the pits. There's Hamilton in the background coming out of the pits as well, so they've made their second stop.
I wonder, given that we had Hamilton reporting an issue with the battery on the radio earlier on in the race, and he's still continuing, and Russell perhaps with the same thing, I wonder whether it's just a fix that they've been able to apply on the steering wheel, like we heard from Williams suggesting to Alexander Albon. Either way, they're still in contention, they're still able to overtake, and you've got Russell in 6th, Piastri in 5th, Norris has made his stop, Hamilton has come in as well. Russell, who had an incredible debut for Mercedes at the circuit back in 2020, and he was in contention to win the Grand Prix before a botched pit stop cost him. They're on board with Oscar Piastri, who wasn't too far away from his teammate, and so this makes it a crucial in-lap for the McLaren driver.
And I think Leclerc will have to pit on this lap as well. Want it to go longer, but with Norris pitting, he may well have to cover off the other McLaren. Past us right now. Is he going to tuck into the pits? Yes, he is. See out the window. Here he is.
So Charles Leclerc into the pits. Oscar Piastri heading to the pit lane as well. Throws it to the mechanics. And this will be interesting to see whether they can get the clean stop. They need one. And in the background there, Piastri. So it's going to be Lando Norris in close proximity to Charles Leclerc. We'll wait to see. Clean stop in the background. Okay, look for the other Papaya McLaren. Looks like it's worked for Ferrari. And the Scuderia get out ahead of Lando Norris, who was the threat there. And it's very close in the background. And is it going to be a position gained? Piastri dives to the inside, claims the place off the road. Tyres are cold. Hamilton takes it by the time they get to turn number 2. And it's 8th position for the Mercedes driver.
Yeah, that was a good effort from Oscar Piastri, but a little bit of school teacher learnings there from Lewis Hamilton, who read that perfectly.
Yeah, it was brave, wasn't it, from Piastri, sending it in straight out of the pits on a set of hard tyres. Just could not get it stopped, and Hamilton goes through. A really good outlap then from Lewis Hamilton. Yeah,
huge improvement in the second and third sectors. Both sectors 0.8 of a second better than he'd managed before earlier in the race.
And yeah, look at the gap actually that he's been able to pull very quickly. It's almost like he's struggling to switch on the tyres in the McLaren.
Well, he lost so much time with momentum out of turn 2, and then struggled through into turn 4 as well. Hamilton set the fastest second and third sector of the race on that outlap.
That's the sort of thing that gets analysed after the race. Of course, you look at your race position at the end of the Grand Prix, but you start breaking it down to, did we lose any time on in-laps? Did we lose any time on out-laps? Clearly, Oscar has, and being brave, that's probably cost them a good second, if not more. When you add that into your total race time, then that's the sort of, the bigger picture stuff that he's continuing to learn.
Great stop for Ferrari there, 2.2 seconds under pressure. Carlos Sainz back into the mix. Perez will be looking at that in a few moments' time. Fernando Alonso is being cleared by Charles Leclerc, breaking down into turn number 1. And a great lap as well from Lando Norris. He's just on the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far. The fuel burning off. Does this get into a window? With the car so close, we saw it looking quite good for Mercedes on the soft tyre, went to the hard tyre, then Carlos Sainz caved him alive there with the fuel burning off. Does that bring Lando Norris into play? Certain cars working better in certain situations.
Sainz emerged into some clean air, but I think he was just a little bit too far back from Perez to get Red Bull too twitchy on the pit wall. I suspect they'll pit Perez on this lap and cover him off at 3.5 seconds. It's a little bit too much to ask for an undercut.
There's Lando Norris trying to apply the power, having to make the correction as he did so, tucking back into the slipstream. And Alonso just running his own race, learning all he can at the moment, just looking for points. And that is Norris going through as expected. We welcome Sergio Perez to the pit lane. Looked like another tidy stop as well for the world champion winning constructor team last couple of years. And back out into the race. It's Carlos Sainz at a rate of knots as well. Remember what we saw with Oscar Piastri, those tyres are slightly cold when you come out of the pits, and soft tyres for Perez. So he's got to take those soft tyres a fairly long way. He is a driver who has that in his skill set, though.
He does. At this stage of the race, of course, fuel has burned off, car is lighter, and therefore the ability and potential as the track is rubbered in to have less degradation is there.
New set for him as well. Saved the set yesterday, and this is where Red Bull have that option that some of the others don't. Daniel Ricciardo pitted and did the same down in 16th. He'll try and charge back through for a point from there. But yeah, Perez and Red Bull, it's a gamble at this stage, isn't it? On the hard tyres, they had the measure of the Ferrari behind.
Saw a bit of debris down at turn 8, just offline. I wonder if that is eventually that end plate that was hanging from the Sauber. Bottas has decided to part company.
So Verstappen in from the lead of the Bahrain Grand Prix. That's another very tidy stop, just matching Ferrari with a 2.2 second stop. Verstappen heads back into the race, looking to continue this outrageous run of Formula One domination. He has won 17 of the last 18 races, and he finds himself heading a 1-2, soft tyres on both of the cars as well. So they're not just confident with the machine that they've built, they're confident that they understand the machine they've built, and they're running soft tyres to the end of the race. You can see Daniel Ricciardo is on that compound as well, everyone else on the hards. This is Lando Norris clearing Fernando Alonso. Not a contest for the place, but he did claim 6th. This is Oscar Piastri's stop. Slow on the front left.
So that's why not only was it a blistering outlap from Hamilton, but it was a slow pit stop for McLaren, which left him in this position. And full credit for the send on the inside, but Hamilton saw it coming, let him go, and smart driving there from Lewis to get him on the exit.
Yeah, just running slightly wide there. You pick up some dust on those new tyres, and you're then out of line for turn 2, and you just compound the mistake and the loss of lap time.
This is Daniel Ricciardo getting past Alexander Albon, and the Australian driver able to get past. He was on that soft rubber, made use of it, and able to move up to 15th position. They're expecting to try and get in the mix for the points today, but if you look at the teams you've got occupying the points at the moment, it is tough, especially when we've got no retirements, and that's no retirements in the opening Grand Prix of the year, where you'd usually expect someone to have a failure.
Yeah, but they're so good now, aren't they, at all of the simulations and the various rigs they have. Even though they only have 3 days of testing, the cars are actually running on full-size dynos, doing thousands of laps prior to coming here. But yeah, I'm a little bit, I was hoping more from RB. It looked in testing, they were not looking too bad. And also for Daniel, I know it's early days, but I see he needs to be in front of Tsunoda consistently in his results if he's putting his name firmly forward as a potential replacement for Perez.
It has looked better, I'd say, than Yuki through testing so far, but when it came down to it, Tsunoda was the stronger in qualifying.
As Hamilton taking the position up to 7th place, slam dunk stuff, back to Joe.
Yeah, Alonso not trying to defend really from any of these guys. He's on his own lonely race, he's going to have to make another pit stop. Yeah, when it's come down to it so far, Tsunoda's had the better of it this weekend. Good in qualifying, and he's just cleared Nico Hülkenberg to get up to 13th, and he's going to, I think, have a run towards that final point potentially. But I agree, I thought it was competitive. They were sort of low-key hyping up their own chances with their progress in winter testing, saying that, yeah, the aim is definitely Q3, and they were very nearly in it. And race pace, a little bit underwhelming so far.
Let's see what the fastest lap of the Grand Prix looks like on the stopwatch for Max Verstappen, who is attacking the final corners of the circuit, and it's a 1:32.608. Ferocious pace from the man out front, looking to claim another win today. It would be 55 wins in Formula One. Last race of last season, he went past Sebastian Vettel.
A new set of tyres and an opportunity for him to take that extra point for fastest lap. A whopping 2 seconds quicker than his teammate Perez on that particular lap.
full beans, wasn't it? He's just playing around now, seeing what he can do. What's the De La Rosa lap record?
Yes, Pedro De La Rosa, who was a super sub at McLaren back in 2005, when here's a chance for an overtake, and it's Oscar Piastri getting past Fernando Alonso, and he's able to get by, and he does get by. The story continues to be told. Alonso just looking after his own race at the moment, not bothering to defend. Yeah, there are very few Formula One venues where the lap record remains from 2005, but they've never resurfaced this place. And as a result, Pedro gets to celebrate it every single year, and he gets even nervier, doesn't he? He's part of the Aston Martin setup due to his association with Fernando Alonso. He had a picture taken with it just in case for the start of the weekend. Yuki Tsunoda is going to force his way by, and does so. That's 13th place. He was clearing Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas.
Yeah, and then Nico backed out a bit in the braking zone, allowing him to go back out on the race line. So it's very much a case of our top 10 is that mixture of Red Bulls, Ferraris, Mercedes and McLarens, and then the two Astons bringing up the rear. It's not quite Noah's Ark, is it? We've got Russell spoiling that. Getting in front, still sitting, what, a second in front of Leclerc. So I guess that's where we're really looking at this battle. It seems that Sainz isn't making headway on Perez. So can Leclerc do anything on Russell?
These guys are fast, mate.
So Mercedes were happily surprised by their one-lap pace in practice on the first day of the Grand Prix weekend, which was in the week, but you get my point. They were then slightly downbeat with what they saw race run-wise. Then they were pleased with George Russell's qualifying performance. Both drivers really, really happy that they feel that they've got a foundation to develop from, rather than a car which is totally wrong, which is what they felt last year. When they were talking of the rear end just not being what they needed at all. Russell can show us how he can fight in the next few laps.
Yeah, got to lose pace is very tight. Norris did hit his tyres pretty hard early on, so maybe he'll pay for it later.
Expected more from Mercedes this far into the race. Hamilton's been kind of stifled down there, hasn't he? Cleared Fernando Alonso, who just doesn't have the pace in the Aston Martin today. Cleared Piastri with the slow stop for McLaren and the fight at turn 1. And apart from that, he's just had the pace of the McLaren ahead, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri in the first stint. And he's not really got close to making another pass. And that's Hamilton from 9th. And we expected that he'd set the car up more towards a better race after yesterday's qualifying disappointment. The other side, you got Russell, pulled off that blinder of a move early on, got into second, drifting back. And now Charles Leclerc is so close to getting the DRS.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that Mercedes were definitely showing better race pace potential than McLaren's, but they've been pretty much trading times, I would say. You know, at moments Russell's looked strong, but they haven't seemed to be able to consistently deliver that.
George Russell's been told on the radio that he can drop, lift and coast, so he's been managing for a couple of laps at least, and now they've told him to turn the wick up in response to the Ferrari. Here's Fernando Alonso, having been passed by plenty of those in the points. He finally returns to the pit lane.
Yeah, that lift and coast will be a little bit of fuel saving, I would assume. I don't see any other potential, any other reason to do that.
It can be sometimes managing the rear tyres, which is, the degradation is high. That's why Fernando Alonso's dropped like a stone in the end of that last stint. So when you lift and coast, you put less energy through the tyres when you smash the brake pedal into this sort of corner here at turn 1. So it could be a bit of fuel with no safety car. It could be a bit of rear management. Either way, Russell has to get on with it because Leclerc is just slightly within that second now.
Well, we've seen some good overtakes today. Carlos Sainz late on the brakes, probably the pick of the bunch so far. But Charles Leclerc will want to be making it at least a Ferrari 3-4 if he can do, and we join him with 15 laps to go of the season opener to see if he can get inside 1 second. He has done. The Mercedes is next up the road.
It's going to be Watchalong finally. He's been stalking him for such a long time, about 25 laps at the middle stint, looking at the back of that Mercedes from almost this view, but now he's a little bit closer in. Fights the rear of the car as he deploys the power and the DRS there that flicks open as he goes through there. Now he's on the attack.
I've got to imagine this is going to be difficult for Russell to defend this. It does look like Leclerc's found a comfort zone, a way of dealing with that issue he had earlier, and just the very nature of the way he braked into turn 1 there. That was quite an aggressive, shallow entry with no sign of lockup.
3 DRS zones are powerful around this circuit. Leclerc he's struggled today, but I think with that braking, if he's got on top of it on this set of tyres, we haven't seen so many lockups from him recently, then I think he's got the pace around this over the Mercedes to make Russell pay at some point, either at turn 1 or turn 4, and he's hounding him a little bit more, menacing, coming down towards turn 8.
So Charles Leclerc last year, level on points with Fernando Alonso in the championship. He's had a strong end to the season, was on the podium the last few races of the year, and he wants to prove that every point does count in Formula One. He knows that Lando Norris is continuing on as well. All over the back. They're all over the back of each other as they climb the hill all the time. So lap 44 of 57. Had a few shuffle around of positions. We've got new team principals down there. New team principal at Haas, new team principal at RB, used to be AlphaTauri, the sporting director at Ferrari, and the minimum Ferrari would expect is that Charles Leclerc can get past. You can see that he's gained half a second over 4 laps. And Russell continues to head this battle in 4th place. Just jetting out to cool the car there, make himself larger in the mirrors.
Russell doing a good job though, considering, as you mentioned Julian, the DRS effect, when you add that up across the lap, gives you quite a bit of lap time.
What do we expect the car to be quicker on this up?
I'll just come back to you.
So they're working that one out at Ferrari, and you can see Sainz, comparison there compared to George Russell across the last 4 laps of the race.
So Sainz is staying with Perez, 3.2 seconds away from the second Red Bull, and he wants that soft tyre to drop away, but Perez maybe just managing it to the end. He's had a new set and should be able to make it go the distance.
This is for the final point, Fernando Alonso.
Around this lap, the hard should be faster than the soft.
So Alonso with fresher tyres, having been passed over and over and over again, is able to get past the Sauber and reclaim his position in the points.
Aston Martin had no need to drop Fernando out of the top 10 here. They've let him be undercut by Zhou, by Stroll, those early pitters. That's now Zhou out of the pits, and Alonso should disappear up the road towards his teammate. I wonder if they've just given him a bit of racing action today. He's had such a quiet day, having been passed by a few cars earlier on, then just found Aston Martin's natural pace. Loves a bit of wheel-to-wheel, was getting absolutely none.
And Max Verstappen at the top of your picture, leading the race by 16 seconds. Oh, once again, Charles Leclerc getting DC excited in the commentary box.
Yeah, he's giving it the big lunge, but it's all a bit too late, isn't it? You know, I think George is doing a fantastic job of just neutralising the benefited pace of that Ferrari.
I think he's feeling it out. I think he's sending it on the brakes just to see what he's got and how far he can lunge from. Remember Vegas?
I was going to say, he lined it up the lap before, didn't he?
Yeah, he's been done by his teammate already in this race with the late lunge. I think he's just feeling it out, sending it in deep. How much stopping power has he got? He's not been comfortable with the brakes so far. When he gets a little closer, full send.
Remember but Vegas, but I got Vegas, so I can't remember anything from that weekend. Rally world champion used to tell me, so I've definitely embraced that philosophy for life.
Let's see, around these final few turns, it still looks an adventure for Charles Leclerc around the final corner. Every time we go on board, he still appears to be working the wheel.
He's just losing a little bit in these last couple of corners. He needs to stay this far away through the final corner. Hope for a little bit of a mistake from Russell, but George is still neat and tidy. It's slightly closer this lap.
Yeah, he definitely looks closer. So, okay, I'm going to gamble that he'll have a lunge. Anyone going to take that bet?
Let's find out. Did he line it up last time? No, he's still getting his eye in, but it is coming down into turn number 1.
Okay, how much did I lose?
There's a lunge and then there's a lunge. That one would have been quite something.
Is it part of a racing driver's psychology, though, when you've seen your teammate pull off a move like that into turn 1?
I'm going to call it now. Next lap, I don't think he had a huge deployment there, Charlie. He was quite close, but he didn't seem to have a lot of overspeed with the slipstream and the DRS. I wonder if he was saving it up, and the next lap he'll have a little bit more to send a big one down the inside.
Yeah, this next little section we're quite telling, but he's quite close to George. Can he get away with turn 10 without any under rotation? Yes, he can, but no, George Russell can't.
George Russell off the road. Charles Leclerc will join him side by side, but with the inside line heading into turn 11, and all of that hard work, lap after lap after lap, pays off. The Ferrari is up to 4th place in the season opener Grand Prix, and Charles Leclerc finds a way by.
After about 43 laps, they swap positions back again. It has been a good drive from George Russell to keep that Ferrari behind, but in the end the pressure just told. And when the car behind is bright red and is this close in your mirrors, it is easy just to make a mistake, particularly on this corner. We've seen so many lockups. George just braking too late, a little too hard as a result, locking up, out wide, and through goes Leclerc.
Well, it has been the tale again and again and again today of lockups at turn number 10. Look, the rubber marks down there on the runoff. Outrageous stuff. Russell's tried to stay with, has stayed with. Inside a second, will still have DRS, does the British driver from Norfolk in the UK have a response to try and stay with the Ferrari. He's at least shown good racecraft to stay there for a couple of corners. The Ferrari looks to be stretching its legs at this stage.
Meanwhile, out front, Max Verstappen was still a whopping 7/10 a lap quicker than the second place driver, Checo Perez, at this time. And it looks like Checo, that drop-off in tyre performance that was predicted by Ferrari hasn't happened.
I think he's managing right now to make sure he knows from second place here the only way he's going to be passed is if those soft tyres do fall off. Max wound it up for that one fly, didn't he? And has smashed in the fastest lap. There's a 32.6. No one else in this Grand Prix has even got into a 1:33. He is a second and a half quicker as a best lap than anyone else in the Grand Prix, but he did wind it up for a full beans attempt. And Checo didn't do that. He's just trying to be a little bit conservative. He hasn't got the pace of his teammate, and he's just trying to make sure he doesn't lose those tyres, which could be marginal to the end if he started to attack.
And what's funny about that is he said on the radio when he did that lap time, he just said to everyone, let me know if anyone gets close. Let me know if anyone gets near it. I'll have another go.
Yeah, indeed. Well, talking of teammates, Fernando Alonso on that later strategy is now coming up against his teammate, and he's been catching him at a fair rate of knots, so I'm not expecting to see much of a defence here from Lance Stroll.
Yeah, there's been chatter on the radio down at Aston Martin, and they're going to swap positions sooner rather than later, and they're managing that one because it would happen anyway, so there's no need for the drivers to fight. And Fernando Alonso will score points again, not quite the fireworks of last year where he was returning to the podium after a couple of fantastic overtakes. We've had another Spanish driver today with some great overtakes, but the green Aston Martins on the main straight, and that swap of position for the drivers, two-time world champion and driver who's won here before, the only driver in the field who was racing here in 2004 in the first Grand Prix in Bahrain. That is still on the grid today, and he's up to that.
I do think Stroll's having a very good drive though to get a point, having been whacked at the first corner, and he's going to get that point unless there's any late drama, because he's got a big gap back to Zhou, who's got still the gaggle of cars behind him till the end of the race.
Fernando Alonso, last year 4th in the Drivers' Championship, the best season for any driver aged over 40 since Sir Jack Brabham back in 1967. Impressive stuff.
It is indeed. So just looking down the running order, trying to see where any potential changes might happen as we get into the closing stages, looks to me that it might be only for out of points paying position. Daniel Ricciardo has brought himself within a second and a half of Tsunoda, so the battle of the RBs over 13th place. Tsunoda's only a second behind Magnussen, so that battle over 12th, but it doesn't look really that, unless anyone makes a mistake in the top 10, that we're likely to see any changes of position.
Not been the best Bahrain Grand Prix we've ever seen. I think that's fair to say at this stage. It's been revealing of some race pace. Ferrari, look, they've had a decent winter, but just not good enough to get near Verstappen. Perez is not a million miles away. He's just slightly getting away from Sainz and should hold on to second place from here. I think Mercedes will be the ones that are a little bit head-scratching with their long-run pace that they were quite confident of last week.
Verstappen, Perez, Sainz and Leclerc. Russell ahead of Norris, Hamilton ahead of Piastri, Alonso ahead of his teammate Lance Stroll, who was clobbered at the first turn and has fought his way back to the points. And we have our first definitive answer of the year. Qualifying was an exciting and close session. It was enjoyable stuff, but it has gone the way of expectations. With 7 laps still to run. It's not over until the checkered flag. Carlos Sainz, currently driver of the day as it stands. This is Yuki Tsunoda, and the Japanese driver is looking to try and force his way past Kevin Magnussen. Tsunoda at the start of his 4th Formula One season. And looking to get himself in the mix of the driver market, establish himself as the team leader. Did well last year with a revolving door in that second seat for the Faenza-based team. They've got a new hub, more personnel joining the team from a factory in Milton Keynes, but they are still based in Faenza, just outside of Imola, where we'll be happily returning to after the floods of last year caused the postponement of the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. We'll be back there as part of a 24 Grand Prix season, the longest ever in Formula One history, which gives everyone time to try and find an answer to what we've seen out front. It looks like for the 3rd year in a row, we're going to have a 1-2 for a team. It was Ferrari in 2022, it was Red Bull in 2023. Red Bull running 1-2 at the moment. Sainz was asking on the radio, he was saying, right, when's the hard tyres moment? Where is it? And he'd still be wondering, where is it? Perez is just managing the car to the flag at the moment.
And there might be the realisation that the hard tyre crossover for the Ferrari might be a little bit different to the hard tyre crossover for the Red Bull car that's been a lot kinder on its tyres generally over the last couple of seasons, and it has been that way again on a new set of softs for both Verstappen and Perez. Perez just getting himself clear of the threat of Sainz. Sainz with 12 seconds back to his teammate should settle in for a podium now as well. Should have a comfortable run. I think the only driver that's not comfortable now in the top 10 is still George Russell, who's just being caught slightly now by Lando Norris. It was actually half a second on the last lap, the lap before that, so Norris may yet fancy a run at a top 5.
That's a move to the inside by Nico Hülkenberg, whose race came undone at that corner. And we're focusing on Lando Norris now. Norris, the owner of 13 podium finishes in Formula One. 13 podium finishes, the most without a win in Formula One history, which he shares that record with. Do you remember from last year?
We will do a driver swap this lap.
Nick Heidfeld
Is the right answer. Ding, 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 ding. And I hope you played along at home.
How many podiums? 13 podiums.
13 podiums.
Surprised Heidfeld had 13 podiums.
He's consistent, had a big chance to win back in 2008, but it was Robert Kubica who took the win that day. That is Sauber's only win under any guise. They've been known by so many different names. That's their only win. So they entered Formula One in 1993. We're on lap 52 and 57. Daniel Ricciardo in a fight with his teammate. Plenty of narrative attached to this. Got to remember AlphaTauri last year, their development towards the end of the season, plain worried teams in Formula One. They were worried about the development. There's been a lot of chat that we've seen about working closer with the senior team.
Yuki, driver swap. Driver swap.
Are you kidding me now?
So Yuki doesn't love that idea. We're talking about working with the senior team. They've got to work with their own drivers at the moment. And Lauren Mekis, the new team principal down there, will be across all of this. Are you kidding me now, was the response from Yuki Tsunoda.
He's loud on the radio, isn't he? Let's take the headphones off for that one coming through. Used to it on the RB pit wall.
Perez needed that earlier on from Hugh Bird.
Yeah, exactly. Swap notes at the end of this. Well, the collaboration between RB and Red Bull. team radio etiquette. Are they going to swap? Tsunoda doesn't want it because he's stuck in behind Magnussen. He's got the DRS open, as has Ricciardo behind on the soft tyre. That's why RB want to swap them round. Yuki's going to have to send it or swap it, I'd have thought.
And Max Verstappen's coming up to this going, oh, here we go. I've got a battle ahead of me. A driver just trying to lap the traffic in front and complete another Grand Prix win.
Yeah, I don't need to say anything.
So Ricciardo knows that...
There it is.
Yeah, there we go.
Opens the door, Ricciardo goes through, Tsunoda listening to the team instructions.
So it's wasted a lap that Daniel might have had with Yuki trying and failing to pass Magnussen. But they're a long way from a point at this stage. 10 seconds up to Stroll, and Stroll still lapping at an okay pace.
Zhou Guanyu, I think, will be as pleased as you can be with an 11th place if you consider that we've got the 2 Red Bulls, the 2 Ferraris, the 2 Mercedes, the 2 McLarens and the 2 Aston Martins. He will be quietly pleased, I think, to find himself in 11th place. Consider that he started this race in 17th. And you never know, opening race of the year could have some unreliability in the closing stages.
It's a win for him at the moment, isn't it? With 20 finishes, that Sauber has no right to be in the top 10 on pure pace, and he's 7 seconds away, having a really solid drive. The other team that I think could be very satisfied with today's work, they'll get nothing for it, most likely, is Haas. Magnussen's still 12th. Hulkenberg, having pitted end of lap 1, has got himself back to 16th, and he's on a soft tyre to the end of the race as well. This team have been plagued with degradation issues. This is a high degradation circuit, and they're in the fight still to the end.
Yeah, thanks guys, I appreciate it.
Tsunoda didn't love the team instruction, and he's not being shy in reporting it. You know that if you hold down that radio and it's as spicy as that, it's getting broadcast to the world, and that'll be a fun debrief. It was only the 13th place. A lot of dramatic developments would have to come your way for that to mean a point by the end, but all the same, Yuki irritated back.
Well, Ricciardo's got to prove why he should have been let through now, and he's actually dropping away from Magnussen, having been given the position by his teammate. So Tsunoda was right there with the Dane, and now he's 2.5 seconds back, but glued to the tail of his teammate. So it would be frustrating to give up when you're right there trying to attack, give up the place, and actually your teammate acts as a buffer. Daniel's got to crack on and make that move stick.
So Verstappen 20 seconds in the lead. Perez has sifted his way from 5th, making use of some mistakes and some tidy overtakes to get himself up to 2nd. Sainz with the overtake of the race at turn 1 with the latest lunge that we've seen in a long time. Charles Leclerc recovering to 4th. George Russell has been as high as 2nd in this Grand Prix, but he is now looking in his mirrors up against fellow Brit Lando Norris. And Lando Norris, not quite what he would have wanted, not quite what McLaren were delivering with him last year when it was podium after podium. 7 podium finishes last year in Formula 1 for the driver you're looking at.
Thought he could have been on the front row though. Lando very frustrated with his qualifying yesterday, made a mistake in the first corner, lost the rear slightly, had a bit of wheel spin, lost the car slightly again at turn 4, and the first sector was a couple of tenths away from what he could have done. If he'd have done that, he would have been at the front. And then McLaren's got the pace to run with the Mercedes. They are literally doing that right now. Possibly even to keep a Ferrari behind on a track that is very easy to overtake. So I think it's encouraging for McLaren this race. Add in the fact that they didn't think this circuit would be particularly good for them anyway. A lot of low-speed corners here.
Yeah, you gotta speed up, man.
Loud and clear, Yuki. Just do your best.
He's not fast. He's not fast at all.
We are looking at it.
Tsunoda's complaining on the radio actually forced Julian to take his headphones off. That was firing good, so loud. Hope it wasn't the same for you at home. Wherever you're watching this one, it's the opening race of the year. It's a long season. We saw from McLaren last year that things can change. They might not change into race 2, but the teams will have got, after 3 days of pre-season testing and the practice and the qualifying, now a real data set, the real numbers to crunch in the most competitive fight that they've had since the end of last season. We're on board with Max Verstappen, the driver who is on his way So his 35th Grand Prix win since the start of the 2022 season. He has been absolutely mesmeric, and he is ticking off the final corners around this racetrack. He's on 56, 57 to come, but we can have a look at a great venue and one of Formula One's greatest ever drivers, because it always felt when he was rushed in to Formula One as quickly as Red Bull could. And the reason that Red Bull got him in as the youngest ever Formula One race winner is they didn't want him to go to another team. That move is still having repercussions. That Red Bull got Max Verstappen is not just going to decide our world champion, our fastest driver, the driver who leads Homer 1-2. Mercedes didn't give Lewis Hamilton a 2-year contract because they were worried about young talent coming through. There's a Formula 2 driver called Kimi Antonelli who's being talked up as potentially the next Max Verstappen, and it's one of the reasons that Lewis Hamilton, given a 1 year plus an option for another, was given the opportunity to go to Ferrari. He's taken it. Big moves to get talent at the right time can have lasting effects. And for Red Bull, Max Verstappen is on his way to win his 55th Grand Prix with them.
And this is complete continuation from where we left off last year. Qualifying really close, anyone's game. Max was actually surprised to be on pole, but in the race pace, he is up the road. He's got a pit stop in hand now over the field. He won't take it because he's already got the fastest lap by some margin. Everyone's going to be wondering how they're going to get on top as Daniel Ricciardo wafts one to the inside at turn 1, but doesn't make it stick over Kevin Magnussen. Yeah, Verstappen, this is alarming for everyone else, but it's also the defeatist attitudes of everyone yesterday coming into the weekend. When they've got a driver like this and a car that's already an evolution on from a beast of last year, the Ferraris, the Mercedes, probably even Sergio Perez, don't think they can beat him. And when you're turning up already on the back foot, it's a tough one to overturn.
Yeah, we're speaking to a former driver at the end of last season, and they said he's got everyone mentally where he wants them, and he's got the performance to boot once again. We have ticked over to a new year, and it is going to be the same result. Car number 1 heading through turn 11, climbing the hill on the last lap of the Grand Prix. Max Verstappen in a season opener. Well, until last year, he'd never claimed one. He'll go back-to-back with Bahrain Grand Prix and season openers as well. And he has one real corner left to go. The Dutch driver continues his domination of Formula One. New year, but no new winner. Max Verstappen, still the driver to beat. Max Verstappen wins the season opener. He takes the Bahrain Grand Prix. And Max Verstappen is lighting up a trail once again. Red Bull expected, Red Bull delivered. It's a 1-2 for the team. And here is Sergio Perez, his best finish since the Italian Grand Prix 9 races ago. And Perez comes across the line to make it a great day for Red Bull. They're 1 and 2 across the line, chased home by Carlos Sainz, who put together a superb performance down at turn 1 with overtake after overtake. He'll be satisfied. But Jolien, it's still the same man out front, and his name is Max Verstappen.
I mean, that is a gauntlet laid down. You never know after testing, but all the whispers were, and it all looked like this car was going to be unstoppable once again. It's a really long season, the longest ever, but he has set his stall out with this one.
A really, really professional drive, Max. Can't ask for more than that. Great start to the year. Nice one.
That was simply lovely. What a great race, unbelievable balance as well. Yeah, great start to the year, guys. Really, really good. 1-2 as well, so absolutely fantastic.
Well, Max, as you say, 1-2 finish, fastest lap, pole position, clean sweep. So brilliant, brilliant start to the year. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, I couldn't have asked for more, really. Great start. Thank you.
Well, he's got used to that feeling. Win number 55 in Formula One. Outstanding record for him. But the records last year, he won 19 Grand Prix. He won 10 Grand Prix in a row for the first time in the sport's history. Most points in the season, most podium finishes in a season, most races led in a season. laps in a season. You come back, it's more of the same. And there's no hiding from it. For everyone else, for Ferrari, for Mercedes, for McLaren, they have to find an answer.
GT, buddy. Tidy job.
Yeah, good job, guys.
Checo, thank you very, very much for that. That was a very strong drive. Well done. 1-2 finish for the team. Maximum points. Best way to start the year.
So Perez with another podium at the place where he got his first Formula One win. That will be podium number 36. But here's your driver of the day.
Good job, Carlos.
Yes.
Good job.
We could keep up with our Red Bull today. But it's a good start, good test, good preparation. Let's go for it now.
Great drive from Sainz. Sainz could finish 2.5 seconds back from him is really encouraging, and it was superb stuff from Carlos. The wheel-to-wheel action was brilliant, and the pace was really good as well. So what a great start to the season for him.
Yeah, only his fourth podium finish since the start of 2023. 3 last year, 1 in the season opener here, and this has been Leclerc territory in the past, so he'll be really encouraged with that. Talking of Leclerc, he's only scored 6 points in the opening 3 races of 2023. Much better start in 2024. But that man continues to win when he wants. Max Verstappen into the arms of his mechanics. They've done the job once again with the design team helmed by Adrian Newey, and there were no need for fireworks on track for Red Bull. They had won that Grand Prix as soon as they completed their final pit stop. And once again, the season opener, the Bahrain Grand Prix, finds ourselves with a 1-2 for the team at the front. Ferrari in 2022, 2023 Red Bull, 2024 Red Bull. And everyone has got to go back and look at where they can improve their cars. Perez will look at a circuit next up in a week's time. Also a Saturday night Grand Prix, about whether he can do what he did last year and win in Jeddah. And Carlos Sainz will want to see those moves back